Hello, everyone. How's it going? Happy Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. I'm here with Schwibbs, aka Schwibbs Poker, exclamation point coach in the chat. If you want to find out more information, we'll certainly plug that up. We're going to be reviewing the final two tables of the Platinum Pass that I won actually 2 weeks ago to this day. He's going to go through and tell you all the mistakes I made and the couple nice plays that I made. How are you doing today, Schwibbs?
Very well. How does it feel to win a $29,000 heads up match? That's the part that's most interesting to me. 1K for second, 30K plus the pass for first. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, honestly, not until you said that did I even think about that there was a $29,000 difference between whether first or second. So I'm kind of glad because I think I would have been like way more nervous in the moment. So no, that's
a
actually
great point.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't look at payouts when I play. And I think it's something that's helped me a lot. I just try and play to the best of my ability and not worry about the money. So
yeah,
hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that is helpful. I think I was way too exhausted from traveling and not sleeping to like even I was just locked in. I was like, once I got heads up, I was like, I'm winning this. For whatever reason, that's what I was thinking. And so, maybe I manifested it. Maybe that helped me not to think about it. But yeah, that's really good advice. Don't look at the payouts. Don't think about the payouts as much as possible. Just play it like it's like you're going to make $5 if you win, type thing. So
yeah, I agree. All right, cool. Let's you want to get into it?
Yep, let's hop right in.
All right. So Queen's first hand seems pretty good. For everyone, this is, I think, just final two tables.
Yes, final 16, because it was or this is we're about to hop to final like 16. I think someone gets eliminated as we're playing this hand.
Okay, nice. All right, so I guess first part, we raise queens in the cutoff, see this board. What's your thought process here?
Let's see. I think it was this Sean Smith's in the big blind. Yeah. So I think this is probably a range C bet, no matter like what you're holding. But I guess you could possibly convince me like I don't know. I don't think that there's any checking I'm ever doing check on an ace 10-2 disconnected board two-tone with me holding a diamond. So 33%.
Yeah, I would just bet range to mostly a small size. I don't think there'd be that much bigger betting here, but I could be wrong. Hands like ace king might want to start sizing up. But I would, for the most part, just default to bet range small. Seems pretty good. Okay, so we check flop, and then they check you on the turn. Thoughts now?
I think this is, if we check, it seems like we have either a weak ace or we don't have like an ace. So I think it's either going to be a check and then check call to river, or you could see bet trying to get value from like diamonds, 10x, that type of thing. So I guess you could probably mix. I don't, that would be my thought. I probably bet, I imagine, but I may have checked. I don't know.
Yep, fair enough. I think I bias toward betting. I think there's a lot to get value from, and I think it's pretty unlikely that you lose. Just because this player, for the most part, I think people would bet an ace here, thinking like you don't have an ace much, you probably would have c-bet the flop with it. So I'm pretty comfortable that we don't lose too often. So I'd be comfortable value betting. At the same time, we don't really need protection, right? There's not really too many cards that come that we now lose. I guess a 4, a 5, or a king. Pretty much are the only cards. So that's why I'm probably biased toward betting, just because there's a lot to get value from. So you did bet, which I think is good. Size looks good.
Yeah, I think I chose a 53% size to try and entice like worse to call instead of going like larger on that board.
Makes sense. Okay, so we raise aces under gun, get flagged by the button. Flop is 8-6-5 two-tone. Thoughts here?
I checked this one. I think you could check or bet, but I think an 8-high board certainly hits their range. They're flat in range more so outside of like ace 8 and king 8 suited. Like I don't have a lot of 8x. I know I have over pairs, and so I think you could go either bet or check to check call or check to check raise.
Yep. Yeah, I would, the way I divvy up the over pairs, So if we think about nines through aces, they're all essentially the same hand class because we would imagine this player doesn't really flat. I mean, maybe they flat tens and nines, but they don't really flat jacks plus. So for the most part, all the overpairs, you get value from the same region. However, nines and tens, they need all the protection in the world, so I would bias toward betting them. Similar with jacks, and then I'd start checking queens, kings, aces. And then as far as the suits go, this is where I'm actually not really sure. I'd have to look at it, but I think like queens with a club wants to bet more, and aces no club wants to bet more. And then the opposite happens where like queens no club wants to check, aces with a club wants to check. It's the suit stuff can get kind of noisy there. But it all comes down to like a value plus protection type thing. So this is one that I think it is worth it to take a quick look. We won't spend too much time here. I just want to see if any of those ideas are reasonable. So then this folds and then the flop, I can never remember. Okay. It is mostly a check range scenario. I don't think betting is necessarily bad though. I like betting, like I said, especially these ones like nines, tens, jacks, and then we can see aces likes to check quite a lot. But there's just such a heavy check in this scenario. So this is not as helpful as I would have liked it to be, but that's fine. Happens.
I mean, I could see splitting like aces, you know, like as a check and like the other overpairs as bets type thing.
Yeah. Okay, so check flop we get here. How are you feeling now?
I feel like I have the best hands because they bet. I mean, unless they're being super trappy with a set, I don't think that they check flush draws. You know, like especially in position. I mean, not on the flop. Like maybe on the turn they could check a flush draw, but I don't think people check flush draws on. It's just not the way most people play. So I think best hand, and I think probably need to like lead here because it also hits like our range so well.
Yeah, I would definitely bet this hand. You correctly identified. I mean, you shouldn't really lose at this point because if you think about sets, they pretty much all have to bet the flop. I can't really see checking back a set on the flop. I mean, maybe, but I don't really think so. I also am with you. There may be some amount of flush draws that check the flop, maybe, but I'm with you. I kind of doubt it. And then we're left with, I mean, what do we lose to? King eight suited probably doesn't even flat pre-flop. So you basically don't lose and you can get value and you need protection. So with all those things considered, I would bet as well. Size looks good. You could maybe go bigger just because it's not like this player has a ton of flushes in the range or a ton of strong hands. I would want to warn you about betting bigger on a flush completing card sometimes is not great, especially in multi-way pots when people have flushes. But here, this player checks back the flop. It's pretty unlikely they have a flush. You could size up. But I think your size is definitely fine. Let me see this river. Thoughts on bet sizing now?
I feel like I went like mid-size, but it feels like they probably have a pocket pair at this point, or maybe King X. And so I guess it's either do I want to target King X or do I want to target maybe like a pocket pair that would be like fours, sixes, sevens. And I think that like it's going to depend. So I think probably like 50 to 80%, the mid to like large would be the two choices that I would go. But I think you probably tell me large is what you should probably bet.
Yeah, I would pot it. Probably because same thing as the turn. I mean, you don't really lose. There's ace five of diamonds pretty much at the end. This player shouldn't really flat 7-5. They probably don't have like two pair that boat it up, right? If they did happen to have king eight suited, like the two or three combos of it, which is unlikely, they flat it anyway, but you now beat that hand. So yeah, I would probably just pot it, I think. And you can also have a lot of bluffs too here, right? Like you check back the flop and then bet this turn. You have unlimited amount of bluffs to choose from. So that kind of helps you incentivize to get called, right? If this player is sitting here with any king or a pocket pair with a club, like you said, I think all those hands, if you pot it, you basically turn all those hands into bluff catchers, which is quite effective. So that's probably what I would do. So you wind up folding anyway. It's fine. The size isn't, I wouldn't say it's like bad. But you could definitely make a good case for sizing up, and that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, I think if you just kind of pot both your bluffs and your value in that situation, I think you end up you're just gonna like make more. You know,
Yeah,
it's like a small thing that adds up over time in terms of win rate.
yeah. And in this situation, like, so say you pot the river, and this player's sitting here with, I don't know, King Jack. Sam's a bluff catcher, right? He doesn't really beat value that you have. Same thing with pocket nines with a club or sevens with a club. You know, you basically turn his entire range into bluff catchers, which I personally like to do, just because it puts them in a tough spot. And people know that I definitely bluff a lot. I don't know if I should say this, but I probably over bluff.
Yeah.
So that to me is a more effective way of getting paid on a bigger bet. So we defend here, seems good. Check fold. Yep. Got 3x. Okay. Thoughts here. This is interesting.
I think if it wasn't 3x, I think at 3x I'd probably start to think about flatten a little bit more because it's a larger size, but maybe that shouldn't be the case. So, but I think this is normally a mix between like 3-bet and flat, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and chip it's harder because he 3x'd. In chip EV, it'll definitely be a good amount of 3-betting. It's kind of weird because this payout structure is pretty much winner take all for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So my usual final two table ICM mindset probably doesn't apply as much here. And what I mean by that is if this was a normal tournament, I would say never 3-bet this hand. I wouldn't even 3-bet jacks, really. I'd probably 3-bet queens plus ace king if we're final two tables. Maybe jacks can come in because you cover the person. But outside of that, it's a pretty tight range because you don't really want to 3-bet get in nines here if you're final two tables of a normal tournament. However, now if you take a flip, say with ace king, ace queen with nines, it probably dramatically increases the chances that you win the tournament, and it's winner take all. So the times that you win probably outweighs the times that you lose. But I would still just advocate for flatting because I don't really know. It's not like I've ever studied this payout structure, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to be an expert here, especially final two tables. So I would flat, and then okay, thoughts here?
I think probably just a call. But yeah, probably a call. In position is just a call.
Okay, I think I consider folding, because a couple things. One, he sized up, so you bet half pot. That matters to me. So when I get in this situation, I'm thinking I have to fold a third of my range, defend 2/3 of my range. If we go back pre-flop, I mean, we have a pretty tight flatting range here because he 3x. So it's not a crazy wide flat range. We have a lot of interaction with the queen and the 10 and the two-tone, right? We have a lot of suited hands, a lot of Broadway. So that helps us defend a lot. And then particularly with these suits, I would call if I had nines with a diamond. But the fact that I have nines, no diamonds, we kind of block how this player would be bluffing if they have king 9 or jack 9 or 9-8. And so since they sized up, I might wind up folding maybe on this particular board with this particular hand, just because I think we might, I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth because like we had to defend 2/3 of our range. This is probably still pretty high up, but I think it's close. That's an interesting turn. He sizes down. All right, thoughts here? I'm going to check that one because I'm curious. But
yeah, I mean, when he sizes down, it feels like probably has like ace king, ace jack, king jack, doesn't know what to, or like probably like ace jack, ace king, and doesn't know what to do with it, or has a queen like every time. That's what it feels like. It's either queen or like, you know, some type of draw, or they have like 8, 7, 6s, and they're like, they just don't understand that you need to be sizing up, like if you're trying to like knock somebody off a hand. So I think probably because of the size, I need to call this now, but it's like a side call because I'm priced in.
yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate though, because the same thing I said about the flop is still true now. Like
Yeah.
your suits and your nines are really bad blockers. You double block a lot of the ways that this player is bluffing. And you don't really block value outside of. No, you don't block any value, because if he has 10-9 suited, you don't block it because of your exact suits. Right, he can have 10-9 of spades and diamonds. So you don't block value, you block bluffs. It's just it's a small bet size. It does kind of make sense because when the middle card pairs, you have a lot of trips now. So sizing down in this scenario can kind of make sense. For that reason, it still allows this player to thinly value bet Queen X. But it's just a really annoying price. I don't know what I would do in game. I'm pretty stationy, so I'd probably wind up calling, but I'm not sure. Real quick though, we can go back to the flop. This is kind of weird because I think this player was cut off hijack. They were low jack, but they 3x'd, which normally represents a stronger range. So I mean, the two opening ranges in these positions are going to be pretty stable, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And then versus half pot bet size, we can see what we do with nines.
Yeah.
And nines with a diamond is in there. Nines no diamond, pretty much pure fold. But you can see like so this is kind of my point. Sevens with a diamond pure in there. Nines with a diamond mixing pretty heavily to fold. And that's just because your blockers are so bad. You block the ways that the opponent is bluffing. So it's kind of weird, but that is what's going on. All right, so we call and then turns 10 clubs. And then they bet a small size. And now it's like mainly a call, pretty much. It's still indifferent. Anytime you see a little bit of blue, it means the hand's worth 0.
Yeah.
So I'm fine either way. Whatever you decide to do, I think it's fine. Thoughts here?
It's like, again, now I just feel like I'm priced in, because, but the ace king gets there, like I mean, I'm like, I'm never winning. I guess like I could probably try to like do something wild and out of line and turn my hand into a bluff here because he goes small. I don't think I did that, but like in thinking about that, I'm like, it's just, like I block 8-9 now, which I doubt they would ever have, but like it feels like I could just pop them and they would probably fold 90% of the time. So that might be the play. But I feel like I'm priced in with the call, and I feel like it's either I'm almost always like smoked, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I am with you. I really like how your head went to bluffing, because I think it is important. When we not that I'm bluffing with this hand, I'm not. But when this player bets in this way, it's like, okay, do you really have a flush? Do you really have ace king? Do you really have ace? I mean, I guess you could have aces or kings like this, and just be kind of scared of the board. That's totally reasonable. But for the most part, straights and flushes and boats. I mean, I guess they could have traps if they have exactly pocket queens or quads or something, or queen 10. But this bet size sequence just seems like ace, queen, king, queen to me. Maybe kings. And so with some hands, I might think about slotting it in. And then so a way to do that, I don't know. It's probably pretty important to have a jack in your hand. So if we had jack 9 suited, maybe that's better, or king jack suited. Just blocking boats, because I think that's the way that you would get trapped. This player bets small, you shove, they call. What do they show up with? I don't know, maybe pocket jacks or jack 10, something like that. So
yeah.
So I wouldn't do it with nines, but I like that your head went there. And then as far as calling goes, I mean, you are getting an unreasonably good price, and if this player has like, I don't know, pocket sevens ever, I don't know if that's reasonable or not, but again, it's only 4 big blinds and you're getting an insane price.
Yeah.
So I might just flick it in knowing that I'm pretty much going to lose 95% of the time, but yeah, kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, for 4 bigs, I only need to win like 1 out of 7 times or something like that for it to be break even. Because I win 20. No, it was 24. They put 4, so I win 38. So it's like 1 out of 8 times to break even or something like that.
So this is pretty interesting. It slams a lot. I mean, it's going to come down to exactly how this block bet size is constructed. But nines with a diamond mixes between folding and jamming. It doesn't like the jack nine, so that's fair.
I guess maybe because it has some value.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think the diamond is where it's important to use that as a bluff. So you would block the way the person would bet call you with a flush. Maybe that's probably part of it. So that's fair. Yeah, I think folding is definitely fine. But I guess to recap though, to go back, where's that here?
Could have saved myself by folding the flop.
Yeah, a lot. It's kind of weird because a lot of what we focus on, this I guess would give everyone an insight to a little bit of our coaching sessions together. But a lot of what we focus on is folding too much to flop bets. But there will be scenarios where you actually are not folding enough, and this is an example. So it's kind of weird like that. Where there's some boards where it's like you're folding way too much, and then other boards where you're not folding enough. I don't mean you specifically, I just mean people in general.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Damien says they would probably in game do what you did and call and fold turn. Yeah, I mean, I think folding like any of those streets would have been really fair. That's one thing I've learned in studying like GTO Wizard is that places where you're working on trying to like call, like increase how much you call, like boards that really favor someone where you have like a smaller pocket pair, where it's like queen 10, like king queen, like, you know, they'll fold a lot more than you would think with pocket pairs, because almost always pocket pairs are calls in position. But when it's like really favors like that range, they're like, I mean, you're just gonna get hammered, and like, do you really want to call off like 2 to 3 streets with like pocket 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s in position when, you know, it's like all Broadway board for somebody?
The thing that helps you the most, the way that I think about this is it really just comes down to fold percentage. So the board could be whatever the board is. Your fold percentage for the most part, 95+% of the time, your fold percentage is going to be the same across all boards. So then it's just about picking like, okay, this board, this queen 10 deuce board, I have so much interaction with all this Broadway, right? I've said this when we first started the flop discussion. I was like, we have so much Broadway here. We have a lot of suited hands as well, right? We have all these flush draws. So that really helps out your defending strategy. And then in order to hit this like roughly 33% fold, which is what I said it would be, they bet around half pot. So that's what the MDF would be. The folds will come from these pocket pairs because all of your other, like the other parts of your range just do so well on this board.
Mm-hmm.
However, we've changed this board to 7 deuce deuce. Like obviously there's going to be a primacy around pocket pairs and then ace high and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's less about how good the board is for them, and it's more just where does this hand fall in your range on this board, relative to their bet size, of course. But all right, so what happened here? We open big blind flats. I would just bet range here. I did go kind of fast. I showed your answer, but yeah, that's what I would do as well. They probably check. All right, thoughts here?
I actually was going to mix this as a frequency like barrel, and so I rolled like a 90 something on the RNG. So it was, and I was like, well, once I barrel the turn, that means I'm probably like sending it on the river. But I said I'll roll one more time, and I actually rolled. I can just foreshadow, and I rolled 95, like 96. So
nice.
So we know where this is headed.
Okay, sweet. I love this combo for bluffing. Why do I love it for bluffing? Well, if we think about our opening range as the bottom, we don't open queen 9 offsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the worst hand we can have. Why does that matter to me? It's just about bluff to value ratio management. So what I mean by that is we have a set number of value hands on this board. They're obviously going to be trips, and then maybe you would double barrel with something like kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, something like that. But then we have a ton of bluffs to pick from, right? We have all this offsuit Broadway stuff. And so I'd rather bluff with this than king, queen, for example.
Yeah.
So I structure it from the bottom of my range. And then also having the heart, the high card heart specifically, is super important to me. The spade's not great, but I think it's less important. This basically just blocks the way that this person would double float you. So if they have king, queen of hearts, guess what? They're going to call the flop and call the turn. But you would block that from happening. So I really like this hand for double barreling, and I probably would at a pretty good clip. So you did. Also with the size, looks pretty much perfect to me. And then pretty nice river, just because if this player was drawing in any capacity, all of the draws missed. So that's pretty helpful. And then like, oh, they led. Interesting. Well, I wouldn't advocate for leading. Why? Because this river doesn't change. Let's go back. For anyone who's curious, when Jared bets like this, he's betting a pretty polarized range of trips or air. There is some amount of like pocket nines here, maybe, but for the most part, he has trips, boats, or air. And then this river doesn't change anything. So you're betting like this into a range that probably smashes you or just folds immediately. You're betting into a polarized range, and this card doesn't give you any like meaningful asymmetries that you now have a bunch of strong hands that Jared doesn't have. So I would not advocate for leading here. And versus the lead, I would definitely just fold. It's probably just really overweight trips. But it's going to wind up being pretty expensive. If you have like ace five or ace seven or ace nine, you do this and you obviously get shoved on by the value and they fold the bluffs, right? Because like Jared said, had this player checked, we might send it with this hand, and then you just obviously snap call the trips and you make a lot of money.
Well, and like I said, I rolled on the RNG and it was being sent, so they saved my entire tournament by leading, like saved me. I talked about this extensively on stream about how they absolutely just saved me from sending it and busting the platinum pass in whatever, but the 14th or whatever this is where we're at.
Love it. Yeah, it's awesome. I am going to pull this one up just because I want to see barreling the turn. Just want to make sure what I said is reasonable. So let's do that real quick. So they check. We bet the flop. I think we bet a small size, right?
33%, yeah.
Yep. They call. Turn is the ace of hearts. They obviously check range. This is not going to be a lead card, I wouldn't think. Nope. Obviously. And then in terms of barreling, I said, okay, I'd rather barrel queen 10 than king queen. That's, if you structure it this way, it's pretty intuitive, but it's just nice to keep it organized where I bluff the bottom of my opening range. So the bottom offsuit stuff is where I'll bluff from first, and I'll bluff king queen never. And then as far as the queen of hearts, super important, right? We could see these queen of hearts are pretty much pure barrels. The 10 of hearts too, also pretty close to pure barrel. So having a heart is very important. And you'll see the other variations do bluff, but basically what I do, just I'm a human. I can't do these frequencies. It's not going to happen. I'll bluff when I have a heart and I'll check when I don't. It's a very easy simplification, but it's very effective.
And it probably works out to about the same frequency if you do it that way.
Exactly. Yep. So pretty nice hand by you. Loved it. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. What's studying and coaching will get you.
Yep. I don't know. This is close. How many players are on this table? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's 8, I think.
8.
It's probably should be an open.
Right. I bet ace 3 is an open and this is a fold. We can check it. These balls are already handed too. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I feel like I've seen this recently.
Yeah,
so
actually, I think I saw that, and that might be why. I remember thinking, like, I used to open all ace deuce suited, and then I saw something on the solvers when I studied, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't be opening this. I was like, okay, odd.
Yeah. So this here is definitely good. This hand, surprisingly, in solvers, ace jack offsuit likes to check a lot, or not check, likes to limp quite a bit. Uses it to limp shove. It's just counterintuitive because you would think like, oh, the suited variation might be better to limp and then shove, but it likes offsuit one better. But raising is still going to be good. I'm not.
Well, and I think it was kind of like the players, like that player was very passive, and so like I'm thinking to like they're either going to fold or I'm going to be able to get value. Like they're just going to like check back everything, which probably is fine. So because I would like to use it as like a check jam free, and I just. Or have them jam. They were so passive. So I don't know if that's a good yeah,
I think that's definitely smart. I agree with you. just for people to see what I was talking about though, like it loves to rate 3x with ace jack suited, and then ace jack off is one that really likes checking. We can talk about open shoving 20 big blinds, but it makes a lot of sense with these low pairs and these lower down offsuit ace x. And don't forget to mix in your 10-7 suited. No, I'm just kidding. I personally don't do this. I think it's fun.
Gotta love those ranges.
Yeah, right. Here I'm definitely down with the bet. That seems good to me on this board. You'll get a lot of overfolding. If you check, it's fine. But I think betting's gonna be pretty good. Ooh, this is kind of annoying. Thoughts here?
I mean, I'd watch this person. I'd be on the table with him a decent amount, and I'd watch them play, and they kind of played a little like pretty face up. Or so it had appeared. So like whether or not they were, like I'd kind of watched their betting patterns, and they really seemed to like check in a lot of places that they should have bet, and then bet like even on like when I couldn't see their cards, like if they opened and then they like checked and checked and checked, and I was like, what? Like check folded on the turn. Like I was like, what are you doing? Like that should always be like a. So I just assumed that they were not betting bluffs to value enough, and so I just said like I'll keep my 15 bigs and move on. And maybe I'm over folding and I have the better hand, but like I just had noticed a pattern that I felt like they had way less bluffs than value than they should, and so that like I was most likely probably like toasted, or like in big trouble if I called.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. In order for this player to be bluffing, they basically need to have spades, right? They would have needed to float you on the flop with a 2-spade hand, right? So, I mean, whatever 2-spade hand you could think of. And that's how they would bluff the turn for the most part. I don't think people would really float the flop with like 8-9 of hearts and then now just blast it off into you. So I think this is like king X, 5x, and spades for the most part. Maybe some amount of ace 3, ace 4. That could definitely be in there. So as far as this hand goes, like, yeah, you don't have a spade. You're pretty high up because I doubt you. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you do have some like bet the flop with king X and then check the turn. So in theory, I would say this is probably pretty close to a call, if not a pure call, just because of you're at the top of your range and you don't block how this player's bluffing. However, I'm with you where this player just, based on what you've said in your experience, they're probably they're under bluffing quite a bit, I would assume. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. I usually don't play poker in that way. But you just have to keep in mind, like, okay, where do the bluffs come from? They come from spades. What does that mean? He would have had to float the flop with a backdoor flush draw, which a lot of people are incapable of doing. People are definitely getting better, especially in these blind v blind situations. So I would want to caution you, but I say all this to say, like, folding is probably the move here. But just know in theory, like, yeah, this is probably a call. But in practice, I'm down with folding. So it seems good to me.
Yeah. Different player, different, like if I'm heads up against you, I'm probably just going to call for my tourney life and live with the results, because I know you have infinite bluffs in that spot. It's so.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair enough. For anyone curious, so Jared jammed 15 big blinds on the button. This is going to be very good with ace 8 offsuit. So all these offsuit ace highs, slot it in.
A short stack study pays off.
Yep. I mean, I guess I should check. I assume we don't defend here. Yeah, good. Okay, thoughts here. Like, so when you get in this situation, what are you thinking?
It's a jam.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just.
So I'll give you my thought process.
What?
I was gonna say I'll give you my thought process. Maybe you've looked this one up and you already know. But my thought process is as follows. This would be if we had normal stack size, so 40 bigs plus or whatever. This would be the very bottom of what we would open. Whenever we have 15 big blinds, it's the tightest stack depth that will ever be. So the first hand to come out for me would just be the bottom. And so since H5 off is usually the bottom, I would just fold this hand. So that's for me, a pretty good and quick way to get to what I hope to be the right answer. I could wind up being wrong.
No, you might.
Because-
I didn't look at this up. In fact, I may not even jammed it. I don't know.
Well, so it is pure, and so I got to the wrong answer. That's definitely fine. But this is with limps. I don't have, limp the cutoff of 14. I personally don't do that. I kind of wish they had 15. I don't know how much of a difference it'll make. It's still in here pure, so I was wrong with this. But the one thing I do want to say, like point out, is our normal cutoff opening range is about 35%, roughly speaking. And here we only get to play 30% of hands.
Yeah.
So it is tighter. However, the lesson for me here would be there's a high card bias. So what comes out, your 7-8 suited, your suited connectors come out, right?
Yeah.
But ace 5 still stays in there. So good learning experience for me. That definitely happens quite a bit.
Always feels good when you get one right over your coach.
Yeah. I mean, that'll happen a lot. I'm not very good at poker, so
Not very good at poker. You're not instilling confidence to the viewers that I'm getting good tutelage and guidance.
yeah. That's pretty easy, obviously. Kings, nice.
I think this is the final. Yeah, I think this is no. Is this the final table?
I don't think so. I didn't see it switch.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, so limped pot. Thoughts here, because it's kind of interesting to me, at least.
Limped pot. I mean, I think you could like continue checking because I mean I have 10.81 bigs and hopefully someone's like I don't know picked up a flush draw, but at the same time like bet in small. I think to try and get I don't know. I mean I'm blocking like some diamond like draws and so I think this is like one of those that like I feel like I probably should bet. And I don't know, betting can't be bad. Like I can't see betting being bad. So I think like a third to half would probably be the way I'd come out. Because if I bet too big, like, I mean, what's going to call me after checking through on the flop?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what the answer is here. I would be fine with both. In game, personally, I wouldn't wind up mixing. I would just kind of do whatever I felt like doing at the time, which maybe is not a great answer. But what's interesting to me is I guess the question I would have is like, do you get to have a betting range here? I don't know. I don't study limp pot, so I'm not sure. But checking twice is definitely going to be good. So for anyone like, oh, I would always bet an 8 here, I don't think it's bad to check. So I think betting here is going to be really good. I would be so upset if we got shoved on because you would pretty much, in my opinion, almost always lose. I don't know if someone just shove a 10. But we got the value, which is great. And kind of, this is exactly what I mean, case in point. Like, no one's going to look at this spot and be like, oh, I have a 10, I'm just going to shove. So if you get shoved on, your hand's a bluff catcher. And that's very upsetting to me. But you still played it well. I'm not saying you didn't play it well. That's just where my head goes.
I'll be honest, someone shoved, I probably call for like 8 more big blinds and just live with it if I, got smoked. I don't know. But maybe I should fold. I
would wind up calling too. I'm just saying, like, I mean, you don't really beat value. It's not like they're shoving worse hands. Is basically my point.
Well, and what bluffs do they really have?
Exactly. Yeah. Another limped pot. So this is a spot where limped pot on the flop, I'd probably just check my whole range.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really. They limp pre-flop. I guess they could have aces, or they could have ace 3 suited, maybe. But I'm feeling pretty comfortable about this now. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm blocking like calls and they have better 8x. I mean, I didn't love that turn because if they had like an 8x, now they're like beating me. But
no, they're not. No, you would have 8s and 4s.
Oh, 8s and 4s. Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, that actually might have been why I think I bet because I was like, oh, if they have 8x, I'm like now ahead, and it's like a sneaky ahead type thing.
Yeah, and you also get a lot of protection, right? If they just have like Queen Jack with a diamond, check, they hit one of their 6 outs, they now win. So definitely still need some protection. I think that's pretty good. So this, I feel like we've gone over this, so I'm sure you're very comfortable with what you're doing here. I just want to make sure you know that this is more exploitative, being like, okay, this player's probably going to overfold, just because if they're playing reasonably and they call the big blind a lot, you're going to go into a post flop spot with a hand that does not flop well, and you're out of position. So maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that what you were doing? Your assumption was this player would overfold.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Ooh, very nice check. I like it. Thoughts here?
I mean, I think probably betting. I guess I assume that I think this is a bet because I can start to get value from like Jack X, 10x that checks back. They could think I'm like on a flush draw. I mean, Queen 9 is possible, but like if I bet and they just like raise, I can just say like, okay. I mean, sure, they could possibly have a flush draw, but it feels like they're probably based off this player, like they're probably stronger than that. So, yeah, I think I probably bet like a 53%. I usually try and like my turn probes is usually just like 53 to 83%. Occasionally like 33%, depending on the circumstance. But I think 53% blind v blind here.
Yep. Yeah, that bet size is definitely good to me. I like betting this hand. I would definitely check. I say definitely. I would mostly check King X of clubs. So if we had King 3 of clubs, I feel like that would be a pretty nice way to double check. Because if this player starts bluffing with clubs, or really just starts bluffing at all, there's pretty much stone dead to what you have for the most part. So it would be a good way to double check and kind of protect yourself. However, the question is, do we really need to protect ourselves if our read is that this player's on the passive side? Maybe not. But yeah, it seems good to me. There's a lot to get value from, obviously, like you said. So that seems good. Yeah, raise is good. Pretty comfortable that you would have bet, so I wasn't going to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I know where the bet button is in position.
Yeah. There you go. I don't know how much I love this.
Yeah.
Just because the board is really good for what they would flat, and you kind of block what you would want them to fold. It's like pocket sevens, pocket eights,
that's a good point.
maybe ace eight. So I might bluff in a different way. I'm not saying I would just never bluff here, but I might choose this slightly different hand class. And what I mean by that is probably more of like a King X suited, Ace X suited, or more equity driven, maybe like 8-9 or something like that.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I don't think that was the best choice to bluff, especially with the range and things like that.
Yeah. You could open this, but folding it's probably totally fine just because of the stacks at the table. At this point, it's important to bias more toward high card hands and less toward desuited connectors when everyone's less than 30 big blinds. So. There. Yeah, seems pretty good. You could actually, if you wanted to, limp this hand on if you had the assumption this player was aggressive enough. I think based off your read, they're not, so I like jamming.
Limp trap would be different. Oh, the 8 hand, that's the one I got counterfeited on.
This one?
Yeah.
I didn't even run it out, my bad. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And this is the importance of collecting chips so you can take hits to your stack like that and still be alive.
Yep. Good defense. I think a lot of people just walk away from the computer at this point and they just stop defending. Like when they see king rag, queen rag type hands versus min raise. So that's good. Pre-flop defense, nice. Not really gonna ask. I think you'd mostly just call. That's what I would do as well.
Yeah.
We should have a pretty good check raise here in terms of frequency, but keeping the king 6, king 5, king 4 in the check call is going to be pretty good. Yeah, bet size is pretty good. I like it. I'm not going to really say anything about it. Okay. How do you think about two pair? Do you treat them all the same, or do you have a heuristic here?
I mean, I think like we've talked about this, and I think top and bottom is if you're gonna split it out, like I would check raise top and bottom two pair.
Yep.
And then
Perfect.
I would like leave this one as not a check raise.
Yep.
And I check raise this one, and I think in hindsight, like on this board, like should I really be check raising? I mean, well, my check raise bluffs are like 7-8, 8-9, maybe like 5-7, like jack 9, those types of things, and certainly like
Yep.
flush. So I guess I do have like a lot of different bluffs, as well as like queen 6, like I could check raise that type of thing. But so
Yeah.
I guess there's lots of check raises for me to have as independent.
For sure. Yeah. I would say so. You're spot on. Top and bottom are usually the most passively played two pair because you block where you get value from, first of all, right? So I guess I'll explain it backwards. So bottom two is very efficient because you unblock top pair. So it's very efficient to check raise with bottom two. It's very efficient to check raise with top two because you cooler the other two pairs that this player could have. They could definitely have 10-6 suited and they could have king-6 suited. And so king 10, you cooler those two. And then top and bottom, you unblock where you get value from. And then this one is kind of just like stuck in the middle and usually more passively played. I think the check raising range here is going to be more, what's the language I'm trying to use? More value protection oriented. So more one pair king X. And then you're going to kind of protect your check call range with stronger hands like this one. So we can just take a quick look.
Yeah, and I mean, I will tell you in game, this was a mistake I made because I did check raise this. So
yeah, it might not wind up being a mistake. Maybe with like the two-tone board, you do just check raise all your strength. Maybe, but I feel like I've seen quite a lot of check calling from stronger regions, especially button versus big blind in these scenarios. So this player bet like a third, roughly speaking. And here's king 6. Here's king 6. Here's king 10. So more check raise with king 10. Here's 10-6. So not as much with 10-6. But you can see how much check raise there is with the one pair king X. So it's more value protection oriented. And then the bluffs, I mean, primarily coming from 7-8. Not that there's no other bluffs, there definitely are, but that's the heaviest one that I see personally. Some out of like, obviously spades, that's different. That's
but like low equity, like no equity type bluff type thing. Not no equity, but like low equity bluffs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is this deja vu? Didn't you just do? Oh no, he folded. Okay.
I don't really love the way I played this hand, but it was.
That's rough.
Again,
poker gets really hard when you have a lot of I don't know how to say this, but like when you have reads on someone who you think is really reliable, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, I'll give a quick story. This will only take a minute, but when I first joined the BBC seminars, there was a hand where, what happened? I'm not going to be able to recall the hand, but basically one of the really high level players in the .com space did this thing on the river where I think it was a relatively small bet. And there were two really high level players in the seminars. One said, I'd always fold, like the guy straight cash homie, never has bluffs here, I would just always fold. And then another guy said, oh, this guy bluffs like this all the time, so I'll just always call. And you have two really high level poker players giving two opposite ends of the spectrum as their answer. And Jordan was like, guys, this is why I don't play poker in this way, because the amount of human bias is just too heavy.
Yeah.
And it could definitely lead to incorrect assumptions. So, I mean, I say all this to say, like, your reads still might be spot on. He might just only do this with an ace at the end. But it's just really hard to know that, especially when, to be honest, a lot of players don't even know their own strategy. 100%. So it's tough to call here. It's really, really difficult, but I think it's
It's a
pretty
call.
good
Yeah.
to say like, okay, you 3.5x pre-flop, he calls. You check the flop, call a bet. Like your whole range isn't an ace or a boat here, so you have to call with non-ace X hands
Yeah.
at least sometimes. Kings no diamond is probably a pretty good way to do it. You still beat some theoretical value if this player does wind up having a jack. Like it's hard for me to say, oh, he never has a jack here. I can't say that. I don't know, and I don't think anyone in the audience would necessarily know either. So that's why generally I don't play poker in a way where it's like I know exactly what he has, so I'm just going to act accordingly. I feel like there's more opportunity for that to fail. Again, I'm not saying I always call here, but that's a quick example of why I play poker in such a mathematical based way, because a lot of human bias can kind of destroy some EV, at least from what I've noticed. So that's my experience. Again, I wouldn't say just always call there, but something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a hand that I would definitely say like I would almost always be calling there. And I don't know if it was like fatigue and then just the player read or whatever, but it's a mistake. So, and I mean, and maybe they did have ace X and I saved myself a bunch of chips.
Right.
You know, but like, you know, so I don't lose like a lot of sleep over. I think it's just something where you learn and you kind of like say like, you know, normally in that scenario, I don't, especially blind v blind, I'm not probably ever going to fold that spot. But I just did this time. So maybe I got lucky, maybe I didn't, like, but it was a mistake. And I think it's something we can all learn from and make sure, you know, and not that folding there's ever bad, but I think you're right. Like mathematically, like we need to be calling that, especially with king. I'm at like the very top of my, like, or like close to like as good as I could be outside of ace X, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would agree. There's a book that I want to read because Jordan mentioned it, I think in the seminar yesterday. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's basically about like humans are programmed to when we lose, it's way more painful than when we win.
Mm-hmm.
And so a good example of that is if you had to flip a coin between, you get tortured for the rest of your life. So every day is just you're just being tortured, like mentally, emotionally, or whatever. So that's option one, or you'll just have complete bliss every single day for the rest of your life. Would you flip a coin for that? Obviously, everybody would say no, and they just want to live their normal life. So as humans, we have this inherent bias of losing really, really sucks and is really painful, but that can lead to more passive plays, more folding. That's why a lot of poker players who, if you don't study, especially quantitatively, you will realize, well, you're probably overfolding in a lot of spots. And again, like I do say all this to say, like your fold isn't, I'm not trying to beat you up for it at all. Because I would also do the same thing where I would get kind of scared to have the player read, and I would also fold here. I'm not saying I would always call, but I like to give these sort of mindset things that I think about because I think it's pretty important. I think a lot of poker players might just look at the spot and just always wind up folding, and you have to realize how exploitative that can start being. Like so basically what I mean is, let's walk this back. He called, you check the flop, he bets. So what's stopping him from having a bluff here? He just called pre-flop. So he should have like 50% of the deck. And you check the flop. So what's stopping him from having 5-4, for example, or Jack 10, or like I mean, he can have anything, right? So he can definitely have a bluff. And then you get here and you can still have Queen 10 or diamonds, or he could even, like I said, some players won't know what they're doing, and he might be thinly value betting a Jack X, thinking that he's either head or needs protection or whatever. Like, I don't know. Right. And so we start folding a hand that could be pretty far ahead of this player's range, I think. So again, definitely don't want to come away from that conversation feeling like I'm beating you up for that. I'm definitely not. It's just something to think about.
No, I mean, I think if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, you know? So, or at least like seeing your mistakes and talking about them. Probably should be an open.
Yep.
Missed that.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Not probably. I mean, definitely should be an open.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Nice. Multi-way spot, nice. Probably a pretty good way to start bluffing now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bottom of a range, we have a double gut shot. Seems pretty good. So I'd probably do it. All right. Thoughts on value betting now?
Yeah, I mean, I think third to half, or like or should be at least like 53%. But I guess you could go like larger. I mean, if you're gonna like all your bluffs, it could just be like pot, like however you want to split up your value and bluffs. I think that's probably what you want to go with.
Okay. Yeah, in this situation, since it's still multi-way, I know check down to the river, but and both these players check too, right? So maybe if they have a stronger jack like Queen Jack, King Jack, they wind up betting themselves. But maybe not because some players will look at this situation and if they're sitting here with Queen Jack being like, as this player, like, oh, 10-8 fills, you could have Ace Jack, King Jack yourself. So I'm gonna not bet. That can happen. And so the reason why I'm pointing this out is you might value cut yourself because you have pretty much the worst jack. This player shouldn't really have Jack 4. This player could, but you have Jack X no kicker, and you can definitely be outkicked. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I'd probably wind up betting half pot. And I think overall your range, it's not like you have super strong hands here. You check down to the river, so it's not a spot where I just start betting pot or something. So I think that bet size is fine. I probably just stick to half pot just because it's, but I think it's fine. And ironically enough, is the one hand, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the one hand that I beat.
The one Jack X hand, I mean.
The one Jack X I beat.
Obviously, you can get called by so many other worse pairs, but.
Okay, this is the final table. Yeah.
Sorry, it took a long time to get through final two. Is this no chips? All right, cool.
Yeah. Hipped.
20 bigs, yeah, seems pretty good to me. Not really gonna ask. If anything comes up where I'm going too fast and you had a question on the hand, just let me know. I'm pretty much just skipping over the spots that I'm not going to ask about because they're pretty easy.
Oh, this is the I think the defining hand at the final table.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You can make an argument for just shoving. I don't know if that's the best play in like these exact positions. But it's a hand that can get value and needs protection, so I wouldn't hate it. But 3x is definitely good too. Ooh, that's kind of weird. I guess I'll ask you.
I mean, this is. I mean, from watching the Sea Monkey play and some of the things they've done, I was just like, this is like I think I'm ahead of their range. I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it could be like Ace Jack, Ace Queen, like something like that, but probably could be like lower pairs that I dominate. And so like I'm ahead of their range, and like even if I lose to the Duke's shove, but I'm never full into 12 big blind shove anyway with tens here, like ever. So like I'm also doing well against their range potentially, because they shove. So yeah, I just repop it. That's I mean my plan is to shove. So chip EV too. Good. Chip EV, like ICM, like I think I probably fold. Like I don't think I repop once Sea Monkey. If we're talking like true ICM, I probably just like fold out and like steam inside that I had to fold tens pre in this situation. But
yeah, I really like your analysis. I think it seems pretty good. I looked at their VPIP and they limp 40% of hands from EP and MP. So they could, like you said, you should be way ahead of this range. Definitely ahead of this range. Also, the nice thing too is they might wind up sharing outs a lot of times, which is really good for you when you have a pair. So if they both have ace king, ace queen, or something like that, or both have ace king, obviously it's a genius spot. So, like you said, ace jack off and ace king, yeah, they share outs, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So what happened here? We raise. Oh, this dude shoved. Okay. So shove, this player called.
I felt priced in. Yeah, just priced in.
Yep. I would also do this. I'd probably bet the turn, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that probably bet in the turn would have been a good idea.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5, 6. That stinks. That's interesting. What do you remember what you do in game?
I value bet. I was
Oh,
betting for
nice.
value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems pretty good.
I just didn't think that C Monkey would have 7x. I just felt like it was unlikely and I could get called by like worse 9x.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. That seems pretty good. Would also be nice too if you do get called by worse 9x and you wind up losing to whatever this player has, you actually get a good bit more value, which would be nice. But
also, like, how much 7x do we really have open? And whether or not they're thinking about that, I was like, well, I don't have 7x or deuce x really. Like, I don't have much of it. Maybe like, ace 7 suited and ace deuce suited. So besides that, like, the person shouldn't be thinking like, they shouldn't in theory think I have like many straights, and maybe 7-8, like maybe 7-8, like 7-8 suited could also 8-7 suited, but like I don't have a lot of straights and stuff like that. So
yeah, and probably mostly best to turn. Maybe you trap with it sometimes, but
yeah.
So raise, call. Checking is pretty good to me. Continuing to check is probably not bad. You could wind up bluffing now though, because outside what would be the bluffs? Ace 9 and King 9 kind of the end, and maybe King Jack.
Yeah.
Maybe just bluff with all those hands and then check this. That seems pretty fine to me. And then not gonna bet the river, so it seems good.
I can't believe that Sean Smith did not bet King Jack at any point in that entire hand. Like I was blown away when the cards got flipped over and they had King Jack, and I was like, open ender, like then it well, it was like, yeah, basically they flopped an open ender from the get-go and never once like bet. And I marked that in my head like as like something to remember for how they play in multi-way pots. Maybe not always like heads up, but multi-way pots at least for sure. Potentially,
makes sense. Yeah, and then because I know I harped on this earlier in the session, but bluffing with the bottom of your range. So that's why I identified that. I was like, okay, what worse hands can we have? I guess we could also maybe have 5-6 suited, maybe not. But if we bluff with a hand like King 9, we'd obviously get hands like King Jack, Ace 9 to fold. So if we start from bluffing from the bottom, it's actually quite efficient and effective. Whereas this, I mean, you would have gotten a worse hand to fold. It's debatable how bad or good that is because this hand has equity and could have bluffed you off. Luckily it didn't, but you can make an argument, but I personally like structuring it from bottom up whenever I'm bluffing.
I mean, I really don't get better hands to fold. And I think that's really kind of the point of bluffing, isn't it? To get better hands to fold. So
yeah, raise calling this, never folding, so it seems pretty good. Unfortunate river.
Yeah. I mean, fortunate flop, unfortunate river.
This is like, it's a call. But if someone's under 3-bet bluffing, then maybe you could advocate for folding. But ooh, the shove. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, so I was like,
I like it.
I was like, calling feels terrible, but like off my chip stack size, like a raise was with their bet size was going to be, well, with the pot size was going to be like 12, like probably close to half my stack. And I was like, I can shove and they can think like I might be on like spade draw or something like that and like call me. And while they may have like 6 outs, 2 overs or something, like I'm probably doing okay. I'm doing okay. I get the money in a head. So I don't think I get called by worse per se. Well, no, I think I can be called by worse. I think that was like part of the thing. But like I just didn't see any like raise size out of position that I could make that wasn't a shove.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. It would just be call or jam. I don't know if this is weird, but I kind of like jamming 10-9 and Jack-9 maybe more. No, that's probably not right because that player should have 3-bet bluffs with 9x. So they should have Jack-9 themselves maybe. But anyway, where my head was going was like, if they have Ace Queen or King Queen as bluffs or even Queen Jack, like we are doing quite well against those hands. But yeah, I think jamming's gonna be pretty good. So we check. What did they wind up betting? Like
it was like, something like that. It was a little bit more, but
that's kind of interesting. It's pretty much like what I thought it might look like as far as the relationship here. And then once you get to Ace 9, it's just like too powerful hand because you beat all the other 9x. But it actually likes raising queen nine the least. So
I can't
think
remember.
these two like protection more.
Yeah, I can't remember if I had like if I rolled for that or not, whether it was supposed to be a check raise. So
yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. It's still gonna be good though.
Yeah.
Yeah, folding's gonna be pretty good here in a four-way pot. You don't really have to hero call much.
If there was a diamond, I think I would have been more enticed to call, but without a backdoor flush, I think on stream I said this, like if there's a backdoor flush, I would have been enticed to call, but like without it, like
perfect. Yeah, that's good to me. A lot of multi-way spots. It's fine. You can mix. I like barreling though, but if I do barrel, I would bet 3 to 4 big blinds. And I'd probably just check now, just because you're really capped. I mean, you could have pocket nines at 7x, but it's probably pretty important to not overbluff here, I would assume.
I definitely bluffed.
Yeah.
I mean, they caught me, but yeah, I think that was probably a better check spot than
yeah.
that spot.
But, so yeah, don't get me wrong. Like bluffing is not going to be bad here. You're at the bottom of your pre-flop opening range. It's not going to be bad, but you just want to keep in mind how capped you are.
Yeah.
And so you want to manage how often you bluff. So maybe you bluff with this, and then you don't bluff with queen nine. Like to me, that would be fine. Or you bluff with this and queen nine, but you don't bluff with queen jack, right? Something like that. Yeah, I would fold as well. ISO seems good. Bet seems good. Yeah, I definitely don't hate this. I think it's pretty good. Would you bet smaller, or would you slot it in, or would you check?
I think as we like what we talked about before. I mean, I think against this player type, I don't see them bluffing really, and so I think I need to bet to get called based off like what I've seen. Now, I'm not gonna say they don't ever bluff, but I don't think they're gonna like. It's not like if the positions were switched and I had like air, like I just bluff queen eight off, like I don't anticipate them bluffing enough for me to like be able to like and so I think in this situation I did with the ace of spade especially, I decided to bet. I think I bet half. I think I went 53%.
Yeah, I like that because this card in particular uncaps this player to flushes and straights, obviously. So I like betting smaller than half pot just because if you shove, you're going to be up against a tighter and tighter range the bigger you bet, and so you might narrow their range to stuff that beats you if you bet too big. Granted, it's only a pot size shove, but I think betting half pot's pretty efficient because this player will just flick it in with all their 10x, and pretty much any pair, they'll just probably just flick it in for the most part. And so I think that's pretty good when you have aces. Whereas if you shove and they start only calling like they call a couple top pairs, but then they call stuff that beats you. Obviously, it's not very efficient. So there you go.
Yeah, I was like, oh, nice call with the. I was like a little surprised they call with the fours, but I like the call because I took the chips.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Really nice bet size there. I liked it a lot.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd probably bet this on the monotone flop. It's not super comfortable, but I like bluffing the monotone flops with straight draws.
Yeah, normally I do, but this time I think for some reason I decided to check because I didn't want to get like check shoved on. And
yeah, so that's a great point. In considering that, I would think if we have 10-9 with a heart, I really don't want to get check shoved on with that type of hand. So I'd be down to check that. But when you have 10-9 off, I think you probably care a little bit less just because the way that this pair shoves is going to be
makes sense.
Mostly hands that have you pretty crushed. Yeah, it seems pretty good to me.
No, that's a good point. Oh yeah, I remember this hand.
Yeah,
So stupid.
sure. I probably would have flicked it in.
Oh
It's
yeah,
probably
no,
not worth
100%. Like
it.
after I talked on after I folded on stream, I talked about how that was such a dumb fold. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm
I,
so
I
tired.
wouldn't say such a dumb fold though. Because you have to keep in mind that I mean this bet sizing sequence is it's very weak, but it's also like this player shouldn't really be bluffing to this type of size much. So probably don't win much. Problem is like they could have ace-5 or something. I don't know. They could have whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'd still flick it in, expecting to lose, but again, you only need 10%. You only need to win 10% of the time. So I would just flick it in.
Yeah, no, I would never. Again, I think this one of those like folds I made. That was just a tired fatigue, and then right after I was like, what? I was like, what am I doing? I was so dumb. I was not so dumb, but it was like, like I would never not call that.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't want to say never because I just didn't call, but
yeah, and it's not like it's not like it's a gold mine. Like, yeah, let's just call here and print, right?
Yeah.
But it's whatever, Okay. Limp, ISO, cool. I don't hate barreling this. I don't love it.
I think I barreled.
Yeah.
I can't
I don't
remember.
hate it.
Oh no, I did check.
All in? No, I'm just kidding.
Like when they did that to me, I did think in my head for a second, like, can I just shove this? And I was like, no, let's not be dumb. Let's not be dumb.
Nice.
You gotta win your flips. Heads up for 29K.
Yeah, 29K. That's sweet. All right, let me walk this back. My bad, I was going pretty fast. So button, we open calls, check, bet, raise, call. That seems obviously super standard. He barrels, call. Seems really standard. That 10 sucks. Why does it suck? It fills out a lot of the ways he's bluffing. King, queen, 8, 7, 8. It's obviously straights fill. Some 2 pairs fill, so worse hands for value, jack 10. So that's pretty extraordinarily bad card. So I'm not loving this situation. Doesn't mean I would always fold, but you beat queen jack the end, or like 6-4. Now he would have to raise the flop with that. Yeah, this card strips out so many ways that this player's bluffing because he had to have raised the flop with something. And so how do we get here? And then he has a bluff. He has queen jack that you beat, and that's pretty much it. That's what I would be thinking. So he bet a size where it's so annoying though. I would probably still fold. It's probably not right to fold though, so if you look this up in a solver, I'm sure it's just pure calls. But based on like where I can, and again, this is human bias, so it's like, how much do you really want to listen to me? Probably not much, because I'm just a stupid human. But just like based on what we've seen and where the bluffs come from, trying to map where the bluffs come from, it seems pretty unlikely. I could be wrong, but yeah, so I was wrong. So this is exactly what I mean. This is the lesson here, right?
Yeah.
So back to the Kings spot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we
were like, oh, this player's not bluffing, right? But people have very chaotic strategies. Like, obviously, like, what is this player doing?
Well, they didn't even three bet. They didn't three bet the pre-flop. They just flatted.
Yeah, just flatted. They flatted pre-flop, and then they decided, yeah, this is the flop I want to just like check raise, bet on. And so this is the exact thing I was talking about. It was kind of funny. I didn't even take my own advice because I was like, yeah, this spot sucks. I might fold. Oh, I said I probably would fold.
Yeah.
Let's not get twisted. I'm pretty sure I said, yeah, I'd fold.
Yeah, you said I would fold. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the perfect illustration of like how much human bias in the game really destroys the EV of our hands. So very nice call by you here. And yeah, maybe I should go read that book I was talking about. No, that's awesome. No, that's a really good lesson, I think, for everybody.
Yeah. When they flipped over Ace King, I was like shocked. I was like, what? My mind was blown about how that hand was played. I was like, what just happened? Yeah.
You know, it's even funnier. I watched this hand, and I forget what I was thinking when I watched it. I think I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, I didn't have super strong thoughts like I did 5 minutes ago. And then you were like, oh, they're just bluffing it off. And I was like, wow, that was a pretty wild bluff.
Yeah. With the strongest ace X you could have. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely fine. This always tilts me when people like do this heads up. They lead in a spot where it's like, what are you doing?
yeah, I know. I was so annoyed. I was like, I'm gonna give you chips. Like, just check. Oh, I thought about this one.
This one I'm more comfortable calling, I think.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of this spot is, to me, a little bit different than the last one. Like the last one, he had to check raise a flop and bet the turn and bet the river. So that's where my human bias is like, oh, probably under bluffing. But here it's just like he bet the flop super small and we called. He bet the turn to half pot relatively small and we just called. And so like to me here, there's conceivably more bluffs, for sure. So I'm more comfortable calling with this hand. And yeah.
I mean, I think on stream I said like, it's annoying. I call, but like it's annoying that like this is the way this hand played out.
Yeah.
So
This is your favorite turn card ever.
yeah, it is. It is. I
Nice.
love that turn card.
Yep.
And the river was my favorite river of all time, and that is it.